let's move on. I'm going to stick with you, Ed, if that's okay for a minute. Companies are innovating rapidly. What will it take to exceed our customers' expectations in a digital world? So everybody's turning up. Everybody's absolutely kind of like wanting more, and the more innovative companies are delivering more. When are we going to run out? When are we going to not be able to, meet the demands of the increasing demands of the British consumer?
Well, I always dine out on what I think is an apocryphal story, which is one of the reasons that the UK is ahead of the game in tech to a certain extent, is because EasyJet was the first company to offer people the opportunity to buy airline tickets online in the early 90s. And I do think it's a point that's not made often enough, actually, that the British consumer's role in the tech revolution, which is, I think, the British consumer is much more inclined to try and use new technology than consumers in other parts of the world. And you take, I referred to fintech in my earlier answer, you go to the US in terms of financial services, and it feels a bit like the Stone Age compared to the kind of apps and so on that British consumers are prepared to use. But I think, obviously you've got a whole host of experts on this call who are actually running digital companies. But to me, to a certain extent, the sky's the limit. I mean, I do, although in some ways it's regarded as the sort of big white whale, I do regard Amazon as one of those kind of big companies that does push the envelope, in the sense that, Amazon Prime, when it was announced, whenever it was 2 or 3 years ago, seemed completely kind of absurd that you could order something that the consumer would want to order something and get it in 2 hours. But of course, the minute the service is provided, consumers do want it. So I think that, and when we talk about drone delivery, which again here and now, you and I, were we kind of sitting in the pub, would probably say drone delivery, it's insane. In 3 years' time, it could be the norm. That apparently there are architecture firms now designing residential homes with a mini drone landing pad for delivery. So I think the ideas that we think are out there and slightly absurd today actually could be the norm in 2-3 years' time. And I think, again, kind of tying together my slight stream of consciousness, that again is the trick for government, which is to constantly, I always used to say with the tech sector, the reason I loved it so much was because it was full of people saying, this is how we do things today, ordering a taxi. How do we change what is actually a routine and quite dull thing to do using technology? And you actually end up making it very exciting and very different. And I think that is why tech is such an exciting sector.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, Will, I think to Ed's point about, who knew that everybody would have an expectation of getting Amazon deliveries the next day, right? Your company's experienced this. You were doing some amazingly new things in delivery, and now everybody's taking it all for granted and wants more. How have you found that?
Absolutely, but I didn't see it as a negative point at all. And exactly as Ed was saying, the sky's the limit with the potential for innovation here. But it's very interesting to kind of think back and put yourself in the mindset of how things were at a given point in the past, rather than focus at them now. If you think back to Deliveroo, founded in 2013, it was a novel and interesting idea that you could get any restaurant food delivered to you at home just with a press of a button. That's now the baseline. You can see, now the expectation is, wait, if I don't have this food in 15 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it is you say that I'm going to get it in, then that's now a massive negative. You can see the same things in terms of kind of personalization, kind of user recognition on applications, where you might have been thrilled 10 years ago that an automated email actually knew your name. Now, anytime you call up a customer service department and they don't know your entire order history and your intention when you were purchasing different things, you think it's an outrage and a disgrace. And so the interesting question which comes next is which bets will be the ones which kind of cause us to have those aha moments in the future and go, well, of course it's this way. Why wouldn't it be? It might be, it might be drone delivery. It might be, it might be driverless cars. It might be, city farms. We don't know which of these things is going to be the norm in the future, but it's really important that we continue to innovate and find the thing which becomes that new point of normalization. I'll just close on one last thing. I hope everyone's seen an online website called Wait But Why. It's one of my strongest recommendations consistently. He talks a lot about the pace of innovation and how long it takes you to have like a mind blown moment. If you grab someone from 1850 and you stuck them in 1860, you probably wouldn't blow anyone's mind. Maybe there's some cool stuff which has happened with latest innovations in steam engines, but you take someone from 1960 and you stick them in today, and that is a officially mind-blowing kind of chain of technological advance. And this time that you kind of have to transport yourself from what is a mind-blowing length of time is getting successively shorter and shorter. And so I do hope that the sky's the limit, and we keep on bringing these frames closer and closer together.
I just butt in and say on Will's point that I thought it's a very telling point. It's a brilliant point, actually. It's why but wait. I have to go on. Wait but why.
Wait but why.
It does highlight the sectors that aren't really being touched by tech, and I just wanted to quickly say things like education. Your friend from 1860 walking into a classroom today would think nothing's changed here.
Yeah, no, that's really important. And to that point, we've got one of our audiences said that why don't we have an Apple, Amazon, Google, or Tesla in the UK, and how can we change that? Maybe there are things in the education sector or other sectors where we could get these. I'm not keen on the whole unicorn thing, but where we could get these people applying massive, investment in those special areas. I guess, Tugce, that might be something you can pick up on. Somebody who's got investment, you're going into an innovative area, or you've been in it for a while, but what do you think about this? Are you going to be able to exceed customers' expectations, or at some point is it all just going to be a bit enough now? That's what it is, and we're not doing anymore.
I don't think any technology company can exist that way. And it's an interesting discussion that you have to convince the capital backing behind the business why you need to do that in a continuous basis. There are times I would get questions around, board meetings that you have the most cutting edge technology. Why are we still investing in 40 more machine learning engineers? Like, can't you just sell what you have, right? Which we can, and I can definitely achieve our targets for this year and next year if I did that. But if we want to stay ahead of the market in 3 years, we need to build that technology. We need to start building that technology today, right? And it constantly comes from the client conversations, what they need, observing what they need, and start responding towards that now. So I never met any technology leader where they would say that, well, we can pause now and then let's see what happens, because you're going to fall behind incredibly fast. There's another interesting questions on the Q&A side about why are we not seeing Amazons and the likes of it emerging, out of UK? I mean, I think we have to first of all give a lot of credit to Deliveroo here, right? Our homegrown company with incredible scale. And I'm sure Deliveroo is not going to be alone in that journey. One thing, Ed touched earlier, in some countries, it's interesting, although Britain is ahead in technology adoption for sure, compared to fintech in the US, for example, some of the other countries are leapfrogging us. Actually, we make payments in 150 countries, micropayments, like $1. And our payment integrations in Africa are a lot more successful than some of the most developed countries, because they all use wallets, digital wallets, and they completely leapfrogged banking, right? In traditional sense. We see similar trends in China, the technology adoption in China is significantly ahead of the UK. So we kind of need to be a little bit mindful of that. While we are probably ahead of the game in the Western world, actually the non-Western world is getting ahead of us.
I think that's true. And I think, just talking about, getting ahead and making sure that you're using all of that, those modern approaches, modern technology. Nadia, one of our audience members, has said, how are regular companies expected to keep up, right? And I think, we're all here and we're talking about our companies and the great stuff they're doing. I guess partnering is probably a good way to keep up. If you're not an expert, then going for a partner. Anna, what experiences might you have in that area in terms of making those strategic partnerships to get that technology advantage?
I think, I think the point is, actually, I was thinking about Deliveroo when you talked about partnerships. The fact that, you're partnering with large supermarkets now, to turn their supply chains on its head and get stuff to people in 15 to 20 minutes. That's a great example of partnerships, and I think that's something that you will continue seeing quite a bit in the next few years. But that's not just in the food delivery sector. We will probably see a lot of this happening in healthcare. We're already seeing it. We know that COVID alone has basically made, they used to say that nothing happens for decades, but then in 1 year, decades happened. That's how healthcare sector is actually thinking about digital transformation now, right? And a lot of that will have to be by necessity based on partnership with other people who are doing cool stuff. But going back to the earlier point about why do we not see the Googles and the Amazons out of the UK. Part of it, I have a slightly contrarian point of view on that. I think we need to look to our strengths actually, because what we forget is that there are some things that all of these companies come out of innovation clusters and decades worth of work and research and government grants and funding and all of the academic work behind that. That's what culminates in all of these big companies. And we do have in the UK some amazing sectors that are actually really ripe for that kind of explosive growth. Biotech is an example. Obviously I'm not in any way qualified to talk about biotech. I don't work in biotech. I'm not a scientist. I don't know anything about it other than the fact that I'm a student of the industry and I look at it. What is really mind blowing it's not normally front of mind for people who work in other tech sectors, but would you believe that according to the Association of Investment Companies, biotech sector has had 491% return over the last 10% compared to the 198% average on every other sector, UK, right? There are at least two $1 billion dollar valuation companies that have been spun out of universities like King's College to go off and do amazing things like, Gamma Delta, a company that's working on, cell therapy for cancer as an example. And with COVID vaccine coming up, that's another shot in the arm. So maybe what we should be doing is not chase after trying to come up with the next Google necessarily. We look to our own strengths and we double down on, how do we take advantage of the fact that 50% of the best life sciences universities are in Europe, and we have some of the top 10 in the UK. Maybe we should take advantage of that and build into it.
I think that's a brilliant point. I think we don't, the life sciences get no media coverage at all, and yet it's a huge UK strength. I mean, absolutely. My answer to the Google Amazon question is always about money and finance. We have everything that Silicon Valley has. What we don't have is a wall of capital that will give someone, a two-person company, $100 million check to expand. Nor do we have, but we are getting it, founders who have $500 million in their back pocket, plus the experience of building $1 billion company, who are going to build the next one. Now, people can have their views on Mike Lynch, but the fact is, he started Darktrace based on having started autonomy. But the life science point is fantastic.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And up in my part of the world in Norfolk, we're building something called the Tech Corridor between Cambridge and Norwich. Because of the biotech and the agritech and the life sciences community that we've got up here. And there's massive investment going into that. So I don't know why it is, Ed, as you say, it's not well talked about, but there is a lot of stuff going on in that world. I love the idea, Anna, of playing to our strengths. I think that's really important. A few suggestions from some of our audience. So probably one to throw to you, Ben. So Revolut, Monzo, Starling and TransferWise have made significant progress in financial innovation. Ed touched on this. We do seem to be at the forefront of fintechs. Why is that, do you think? Is that playing to our strengths?
I think, and OakNorth as well, right? I've had the privilege of working for two very successful UK-based fintech. So, I think it's part of playing to our strengths. There's so many people who just have, wealth of experience in financial services in London. It's kind of a foundational thing. I think that it's kind of, there's maybe a couple of other things as well. I think one is just the real passion to solve the problem. Mm-hmm. The thing that, obviously I know Anna Starling and Rishi at OakNorth very well, and it's the founder's story. They've been heavily involved in financial services, completely different aspects of it, but they've come across problems that they've just thought to themselves, right, I've had enough, I've got to go solve this myself. So it's like the experience, and then the not just to kind of identify the problem, but actually have the confidence to actually know that we can take this on and solve it, and just not really have a plan B. But I think it's just that it's like the experience and the desire. And I think just because we've got critical mass of people in financial services, you're going to get one or two at least of those companies to break through. And as soon as you've done that, then you start to see this whole ecosystem appear. I think the thing for me, maybe slightly related to the previous question as well, is just it's basically being, and this is something that Amazon's very good at, is just being unafraid to take really, really, really big bets. It's not about just tweaking this and optimizing this by 1%. It's like, Amazon go and creating a movie studio, which I was involved in 2014. Right? It's like, who'd have thought like 10 years before that people would be making these types of bets to go and drive their business. So I think, we've got folks in financial services willing to make those big bets, but it's kind of going from 0 to 1, like not having a company to having a company. I think the interesting thing for me is what comes next, where these companies go from just having one business and one product to starting having multiple businesses and multiple products. So I think it's only really the start of the financial services innovation in the UK, I think.
Well, that's great. And let's hope that we get that kind of, desire, effort and interest, as you're saying, in a few other sectors, because it seems to be the way that we get stuff done, right? So
I'm not sure we'll see the Starling or the OakNorth or the Monzo movie studio, though.
Well, maybe not. You never know. A little bit of diversification never hurt anybody, Ben, right?